Let's get back to the drive on the home of the Sens, TSN 1200. Now, it's time for Need to Know Basis.
Welcome back. Hour 2 of the drive. Lever Sage, Matt Conazvita with you. With you until 5 o'clock. AJ and Jeff Avery will have the call of tonight's game, 7:30. Here's what you need to know. There's a lot. Drake Batherson has signed a 6-year deal worth just under $30 million, a $4.975 million average for Drake Batherson, who at 23 years old is locked up now for the next 6 years. Ottawa buying up some of the restricted and unrestricted free agent years for Drake Batherson, but he is freshly signed today. The NHL players will play in the 2022 Winter Olympics. That was announced a few hours ago, and it's about time. IIHF and the NHL came to this agreement, but they finally were able to sort through it and to get the deal done. Well, we will watch NHL players play in the Olympics. As I said, 6 o'clock countdown to kickoff, 7:30 the kickoff. The 1-2 Ottawa Redblacks host the 1-2 Montreal Alouettes here at TD Place. And the kickoff to the Labor Day weekend. It's the first of 4 against the Alouettes for the Ottawa Redblacks. The Toronto Blue Jays kick off a crucial 3-game set against the Oakland A's. Oakland, one of the teams they are trying to catch in the wild card. With Boston's win last night, they are 5 back in the wild card with under 30 games to go now. So with Oakland a couple of games back of the Red Sox, the Blue Jays hosting Oakland for a 3-game set. And right now, that is what you need to know. You need to know that the commissioner of the CFL will be on in about an hour from now, Randy Ambrosie. And your questions. We welcome them at 1200. We'll ask as many as possible. The commissioner has given us some time here today and said that he is willing to come on for 20, 25 minutes and answer as many questions as possible. So we will ask Randy Ambrosie as we get into Labor Day weekend here exactly what you want to know when it comes to the commissioner. And Pierre Dorion spoke to Steve Lloyd earlier today about the Drake Batherson contract and a whole lot more with the Ottawa Senators. We'll let you hear some of that interview later on in the show, but if you do want to go back, tsn1200.ca, and you can hear that interview in its entirety. The TSN 1200 web poll of the day brought to you by the Tool and Equipment Store. Simply reads like this. What do you think of the Drake Batherson contract? $4.975 million times 6 years. Love it, hate it, or meh? And almost 1,000 votes right now. 95%. Still the number. Love it. The Drake Batherson contract. All right, we're going to go to the Gabriel Pizza Hotline right now and bring on the play-by-play voice of the Montreal Alouettes as we get set for, can we call it a rivalry? Sean Campbell, a rivalry because they're playing on Labor Day weekend and Thanksgiving Day weekend. Ottawa and Montreal, how are you?
I'm good. I think they're trying to force this rivalry on everybody. You need a good playoff game. You need a little bit of history between the two teams. Not there just yet. Maybe just because of the proximity and they're the only other teams left that don't have a rivalry. But maybe one day we'll get there.
What if just the radio guys yelled at each other for a while? Would that create a rivalry?
Yeah, let's do it.
No,
let's do it.
Nothing to yell. I'm just happy that we have CFL football. I'm sitting up here probably about 10 feet from where you're going to sit, calling tonight's game, looking out over the field now. And, for a league right now that hasn't had a lot of offense, hopefully both fan bases expecting a little bit more. We watch Montreal be so good in week number 1. I guess, Sean, the question, first of all, is what has happened to the Alouettes the last couple of games?
chemistry. And if you're looking at the offensive numbers, at the first game, it looked good. You had the deep ball to Jake Wieneke. It was play of the week, possible play of the year, that touchdown. Vernon Adams Jr. was hitting his receivers. He had a big game at 30 points. Everything felt good. But in the following week against Calgary and then at home against Hamilton, just no chemistry for an offense that is pretty much the same from 2019. And it's been a struggle for Vernon Adams Jr. to get that completion percentage up. He's been throwing behind receivers, over receivers, in front of receivers. The receivers haven't helped. He's had drop balls, too. It's not just Vernon Adams Jr., but chemistry has been an issue the last 2 weeks.
Which is a little bit surprising when it comes to Vernon Adams, but at the same time, are you surprised at the lack of chemistry because of no preseason games and just getting into the season for all offenses around the league has not looked very pretty through the first few weeks?
No, and I know that Ottawa knows that very well, that the offense is not being...
Don't rub it in, Sean. Don't rub it in so far, okay?
Yeah, well, you wanted a little spice, right? What, under 13 points a game? At least the Owls are over 20 points a game. But, no, it's been low scoring. I mean, you look at the over-unders, if you're a betting man, take the under all the time, and you'll probably, if you've been doing that in the first few weeks of the season, it's going well. The no preseason is interesting. Of course, you can allot it to that, but the Owls had the extra week, right? They had I know they had the bye week and they get the time off, but they did have the extra week to prepare, and I thought that was going to benefit them. And after week one, I was like, yep, it did. They were one of the few offenses that looked like it was clicking and ready to go, but it's fallen apart from there. So I don't know if we can go back a month now and say, oh, it was because they didn't have a preseason game. I think it's a little bit more than that.
Sean Campbell, play-by-play voice of the Montreal Alouettes, joining us here on The Drive. For Vernon Adams Jr. specifically, he looks like a guy that has all the tools, a guy that can really be a premier player in the Canadian Football League. What is it going to take for him to be able to get there in your mind? The one thing, because you just look at the athlete and you watch him on the field and you're like, yeah, this guy might be one of the best players in the CFL.
Yeah, it's the consistency. I think any quarterback wants that. Any team wants that. It's been a very long and winding road since Anthony Calvillo has retired with the Owls to find a quarterback that can consistently start. They had that in 2019, and even though he struggled the last few weeks, I really like that Kahari Jones is, he's squashing any rumors if he doesn't have faith or he's questioning what Vernon Adams Jr. He's like, no, he's our guy, and he is the leader, and he took a lot of the blame in that game against Hamilton. I think that he understands what he needs to do. He has good practices. He does have chemistry with a lot of guys. He gets along with them. But I think it's the consistency of the throws, the decision-making. Those are just little things. And you saw in 2019, it wasn't perfect, but it was that next step. And I think everybody's just waiting for Vernon Adams Jr. to take that next step. You look around the league, and you're right. He's the guy that's on the cusp of being the next superstar. But it's on him to perform when it's there. And when he has an open receiver, he just can't miss it. And it's just happened too often.
How has Kahari Jones kind of settled the group here after a couple of weeks? I happen to agree with you. I love the fact that if people are asking the questions because he had a couple of bad games. No, Vernon Adams Jr. is our quarterback, and he is our guy, because I can tell you those questions are happening here because Matt Nichols doesn't have the same background that Vernon Adams Jr. does in Montreal here in Ottawa. Matt Nichols has come in. They had Nick Arbuckle. They let him go before he ever played. Matt Nichols hasn't looked very good, and there are calls here for Dominique Davis or somebody else to play quarterback so far. So, other than settling his quarterback spot, how has Kahari Jones kind of settled down his team here through a couple of weeks of poor performances?
By the way, I'm all for Nichols starting, because if Davis starts, your running back is Davis, the receiver is Davis, the quarterback's Davis. As a play-by-play guy, not a big fan of that, but nonetheless.
You know what? If we could just throw in a couple of offensive linemen here or another receiver, you're right. We got Ryan Davis and Justin Davis and Dominique Davis all on offense. Look at it this way, Sean. You can never go wrong. Just say Davis has got the ball. You're probably going to be right.
Yeah, and the Owls are starting on the defensive line. Jamal Davis, he's coming into the lineup today. So we'll see what happens in the game. But Kahari Jones, I think he has the pulse of the locker room. I think he really understands. I think that group of players really believe in their head coach, and that coach believes in the players that he has. Now, he has to make sure that they get on the same page because it was not pretty the last 2 weeks. But he is very good at making sure that they know what the task is and what they need to do. And he brings a lot of energy. He is a very vocal head coach. He is a very mobile. On TV timeouts, he's dancing. This is the kind of guy he is. And I think that energy trickles down to the team. Now, it has to be positive energy because we saw a couple weeks ago in Calgary that negative energy led to many, many penalties. And even last week against Hamilton, the CFL, they sent out their list of fines across the league. 3 players got fined, and they were all on the Alouettes. So you have to just make sure that they're channeling positive energy, and I think that the Owls will be ready for this task against the Red Blacks tonight.
I always thought William Stanback, and maybe he is one of the, if not the best running back in the league if Andrew Harris isn't playing. He didn't look very good the other night. They 12 rushes, 40 yards, and the run game didn't look like a threat whatsoever. How come?
They just couldn't get by that defensive line of Hamilton. I mean, their scheme against Stanback was so good early in the game, it really changed the offense for the Owls. And in a game that's 13-10 in the second half, the Owls will still go to the run game. They trust Will Stanback, and he is a guy that will hit a body at the line of scrimmage but still get 5 to 6, 7 yards. That wasn't happening against Hamilton. And, you know, he's good for 5 yards even if you touch him behind the line of scrimmage. And I don't know how much it was on the offensive line or Stanback, but at the same time, that run game is important for the Owls because if they become one-dimensional in just the passing game, they're going to struggle. They need Stanback to have a good start in that first quarter, and then they'll be able to open up their playbook a little bit more.
Sean Campbell, play-by-play voice of the Montreal Alouettes here on The Drive. So let's look league-wide. Randy Ambrosie's coming up with me at 4 o'clock, and I am going to ask him about why he thinks the offense is down and what he thinks of the product so far here through the first 4 weeks. It's my opinion it hasn't been very good, not just with the Red Blacks or the Alouettes or like much going on in the CFL. The games just haven't been that entertaining. First of all, would you agree with that? And if you do, why?
Yeah, look, I think I've been entertained because I missed the game. And I think that's a good point for the CFL that they're going to have these growing pains, but it's happening at the excitement level of there wasn't CFL for an entire year, so everybody's excited that it's back. But if this drags on and we're getting these 13-10 or 19-18 games and offense is struggling all season long, I think there might be a little bit of a blowback. The CFL is known to be an offensive league. They're going to put up points. It's dynamic. With 3-down football, you got to throw the football. And it's been a lot of back and forth and punting. And look, I love a good defensive battle. I love hard-hitting football. I love when it comes down to the wire with dramatic moments. But if this drags on, I think it will hurt the CFL. I don't expect it to drag on. The CFL game, the way that it's made, the rules, the field, the players, it's going to turn offensive. It's taking a little longer than I actually thought it would.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And I think where you start to get in trouble, just like Montreal, Ottawa had their first couple of games on the road, right? And they won a game that they probably didn't deserve to win with only 94 net yards of offense in Edmonton, but they won it because they had great defense. And then the second one, they had great defense again, but they just couldn't score. And the fans, they're watching on TV and they're probably a little frustrated, but they're like, okay, well, they'll get back home. And then when you have a game at home and you're not very good, and both Ottawa and Montreal have now done that last week, and where the team had just not performed in front of their own fans, where you start to get, I think, in danger is where then you play again, and we got the game tonight. And, fans here, they would like to be entertained, and they don't want to see every game where, this team has one offensive touchdown this year, one, in 3 games. and that's just not going to be able to cut it. So that's where, Sean, I think you get in trouble, where there's going to be some pressure here on this Ottawa offense tonight to perform, not just for the fans, but for their own team and get their own defense off of the field.
Yeah, and look, I could speak to the Owls' perspective on that. The Owls, if you listen to their owner, the president, Mario Cecchini, Danny Machocha, and even Kahari Jones, the message is very clear. The Alouettes say they want to be entertaining. They want their fans to get out of their seats. They want to be one of the more dynamic offensive teams that takes chances. And in game number 1, that did not happen. It was a offensive bust. Defensively, the Owls have been strong and entertaining, getting to the quarterback, having some interceptions. And they've had the special teams touchdown with Mario Alford. But this team's philosophy, and ever since new ownership took over and then the canceled season, it has been about entertainment. They want to entertain the fans. So I think it's still wait and see. They've only had one home game. They're on the road again. So I'm curious when they're at home against BC in a couple weeks, and even this week against Ottawa, what kind of flash the Owls are going to bring.
And you also mentioned the injuries and what the injury report has done, the single game betting that's now out for people to be able to do. I'll ask you about the injuries right now to the Alouettes and what you've thought of the injury report for all teams leading up to trying to give some of that information to people who need it. And then we saw what happened in the first couple of weeks with Nathan Rourke and Mike Riley and the BC Lions kind of getting in the way of that.
Yeah, it's so far with the Owls, it's been pretty straightforward. They have their healthy injuries, the healthy scratches, but this is the first week, at least injury-wise, for the Owls that the list is pretty long. They got through, and when the season starts and players are excited, something usually bad happens to a player or two. But this is the first week. They're missing their middle linebacker. Ahmad Thomas is out. They already lost their rookie DB, Wes Sutton, who was so good in the first 2 games. He had to have wrist surgery, so they're having a change at safety this week as Marc-Antoine Duquois is coming in. Antonio Simmons will not play. That's why I told you Davis is in. They're making a lot of changes to their lineup this week. And I haven't, on the betting front or anything or the information, Owls so far I think have been pretty straightforward and don't seem to be, keeping anything back from the public.
Just before we let you go, how have the fans reacted so far to the Alouettes coming back and the support here for, a team that I think a lot of people think has the possibility of winning the CFL East?
Yeah, it's hard to tell, right? Because you could usually tell how the Owls fans feel about them about the attendance. The attendance will give you a very good indication. They can fit about 20,000, 22,000 depending, and if interest is low, you'll get 15,000. If interest is high, it's going to be sold out. But because of COVID protocol, they were only able to get 13,000 into the building at Percival Molson Stadium. I do believe right now interest is at a high. I think people are excited to see and watch live football. I think they're excited about this team because of all the messages that have been trickling down that they're going to be an offensive, dynamic, fun team. They have a star quarterback in Vernon Adams Jr. When I talk to fans and when people talk Owls with me, I sense the excitement a little bit more than maybe 2-3 years ago.
Am I allowed to ask you a hockey question before we go?
Yeah, you going Jesperi Kotkaniemi on me?
Well, all I'll ask you is, do you think he'll be a member of the Montreal Canadiens in a couple days?
Yeah, it's tomorrow, I believe, is the deadline. We've been talking about it all week.
I'm sure.
At 690. I called it the week of speculation because we have not heard mum from the Canadiens, like nothing at all. And if you remember when the Sebastian Aho thing happened, it was the next day that Carolina's like, oh, no, we're going to match. Don't worry about it. I think the Habs are going to match. I don't think they want to be bullied into this, and it's kind of out of their hands. I would match too if I was in charge, but I'm not. I think it's the smart thing to do. It's very hard to give up on a draft pick at 21 years old. He's not a $6.1 million player, but that's out of the Canadiens' control right now. You're just going to have to manage your cap just a little bit differently because of it. But I don't see it being worth a first and a third for Jesperi Kotkaniemi. And I also don't see the Canadiens being better with him off the roster. So I think they're going to, but honestly, I don't know. Marc Bergevin does things really differently, so we'll find out. It's a really interesting offer sheet. Just the 1 year, $6.1 million really puts the Canadiens in a bind. It's fun to have a little hockey talk in the middle of August and September.
Yeah, the Sens signed Drake Batherson today. People are pretty fired up. I lied to you because now I'm going to ask you another question. Is there any kind of blowback on Jesperi Kotkaniemi for actually signing this deal?
No. It was kind of one of my questions I had. I was hosting Midday on Tuesday, and I wanted to see if people were upset that he actually signed it. And no one's upset that a hockey player has got a contract that was $6.1 million and decided to sign it. And you could go into the history. Shea Weber signed an offer sheet. Was Shea Weber ever deemed a bad teammate? No, he was one of the best leaders of Nashville. He signed that offer sheet with Philadelphia way back when. That's the contract that he has right now. It's the same deal that he signed with Philadelphia. And I think the one thing that sticks out for me, though, is the signing bonus of $20 for Sebastian Aho.
Yeah.
Jesperi Kotkaniemi could have went to his agent and said, come on, I can't rub it into the Canadiens. I might play with them. Take that out, please. That little signing bonus, and he actually signed a contract with that there, I think is a little bit of a shot that Jesperi Kotkaniemi and his agent could have said, hey, we're not going to sign it if you do that, because that's just, now you're just rubbing, salt in the wound. That's maybe the only thing I thought about. But I don't think no fans are upset at Kotkaniemi for signing this deal. He's a professional. He got an offer. He signed it.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I wonder why he didn't take that out, but you also wonder if that was hey, I didn't like being a healthy scratch at times during the playoffs either, and I'll leave that in because of it. I love the fact that we could talk hockey, we could talk football. Look forward to seeing you here at the stadium, and I do hope a rivalry is created because I think it's been needed here in the CFL with Ottawa and Montreal, and they're going to get going tonight for the first of 4 on Labor Day weekend.
Should be a fun one. We're on our way, getting closer to Ottawa as we speak. So look forward to seeing you later.
Well, great football conditions right now, and not too hot, and a little bit of cloud cover, but a nice day here at TD Place. Sean, thanks very much, and we'll see you here at the stadium.
Have a good one.
Sean Campbell, play-by-play voice of the Montreal Alouettes on the Gabriel Pizza Hotline. Gabriel Pizza, the bigger, better pizza. You can order online at GabrielPizza.com. Deadline's tomorrow, Matt. And as he said, nothing from the Montreal Canadiens. It's an interesting topic because...
You went Irish there.
It's an interesting topic, Matt.
It sure is, Lee.
Because... as Sean said, he would match it. He sounded confident. I think other people have sounded very confident if they feel like they're just going to match it and keep Jesperi Kotkaniemi. But those who don't feel strongly the other way. It's not like people go, well, maybe I would. No. I don't think the player's a $6 million player, and I don't want him in the fold for that long, and he didn't show that much, and it's worth getting the first and third back, and let's move on here. There are some split decisions on Jesperi Kotkaniemi.
And how much, I'd have to go back and look, and I'm sorry I haven't done it yet, but how common is it that a team waits the entire week before matching? Because as Sean alluded to with Sebastian Aho, it was like the next day. I'm trying to look back, and I can't remember how long Nashville took before deciding to match and... when Shea Weber was offer sheeted by the Flyers.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing from Marc Bergevin's point of view, it puts him at least in control for the week of what Carolina can and can't do, depending on whether they get Kotkaniemi or not. Right? They can't go ahead and do some other things depending on if Kotkaniemi and $6.1 million is coming into their lineup. So Marc Bergevin would know right now whether he's going to match it or not. And putting, for a team that did this out of spite, putting them on their heels, at least for the week, makes sense to me. Because I think Marc Bergevin, regardless of the decision, knows what he's going to do. But, okay, you want to do this to us? I'm going to make you wait at least to figure it out. But fascinating decision on exactly what will happen with Jesperi Kotkaniemi. We'll get back to Drake Batherson talk. Your text at 1200. Randy Ambrosi, Commissioner of the CFL, at 4 o'clock. And you'll hear from Pierre Dorion, Sens General Manager, about the signing of Drake Batherson and other Sens topics before 5 on The Drive on TSN 1200.
Let's get back to The Drive on the home of the Sens, TSN 1200.
Welcome back to The Drive. Lieber Sage, Matt Conazvita with you until 5 o'clock. What are we listening to, Matt?
It's a little Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, Southern Cross for Steve.
All right.
A rare request from Steve that I'm willing to play. As the Yacht Rock sailing into the weekend vibes continue.
Yacht Rock for the win. Drake for $30 million is a steal. Wishing he was on my team at that price. Leaf fan in Ottawa. Well, if you're a Leaf fan and you like Yacht Rock and you want Drake Batherson on your team, you've really swept into the Ottawa market here, haven't you? He does skate with Sid and Nate. Let's not forget that some other guys do as well. It's not very nice, them saying about Brad Marchand.
Good player.
Sens fan in the Valley. Great day and contract. He didn't say good player, but he is a good player. He is a good player. Yeah, I mean there's some top talent that does. Of course, the news of the day: the Drake Batherson contract, 6 years at $4.975. It's backloaded, where the significant money comes in the last couple of years of the contract. That would be his unrestricted free agent years. But as a Sens fan, how you feeling? Drake Batherson has been signed to a 6-year deal by the Ottawa Senators. Drake Batherson could be a nice soften the blow from losing Mark Stone, late draft pick, good hockey sense and good character, top 6 forward, and possibly a guy that will go on and have some success. Well, I don't know if it softens the blow. Mark Stone.
I think that one still hurts.
Still hurts people for a lot of reasons.
And then you see the pictures from his wedding and Brady Tkachuk being in the wedding party.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think you're right that it still hurts a little bit, but
sure.
I think listening to Drake Batherson, just talking about how this is where he wanted to be, how excited he was to get this deal with Ottawa, to stay here with the team that his dad and his uncle played for, a team that he cheered for growing up. That's what you want to hear from your players, obviously. And I think that's really a positive thing that we can take away from the interview as well, just on top of the fact that he has signed a 6-year extension, is how pumped he was to stay in Ottawa.
By loading up the back of the contract with money, doesn't that hurt our potential cap space when we need to sign the next generation of kids? The Stutzles, the Sandersons, the Bouchers, etc. If you know where the salary cap will be in 6 years, I mean, if it stays flat for that entire time, yeah. The answer is yes, but I don't think it will. So you're also trying to project where that's going to be, and that's not always easy as an organization. If the player wanted to sign long-term but wanted the money backloaded, what are you going to do? I don't see it being that big of a deal, Matt.
No, I don't think so either. And the important thing is the cap hit is under $5 million.
Exactly. And what do you project Drake Batherson out to be? Hi, guys. I like the Batherson contract. Good for both sides. Positive move. Helps distract us from the Tkachuk issue. Simmer addressed. That being said, you are coming across a little bit defensive and less objective. If Batherson puts up 50 or more points, I believe he can, then this is a good contract. If he scores 40 points or less, this is a bad contract. Only Father Time will tell. From Scott at 12,1200.
And maybe we should read Simmer's tweet that he had this morning. I'm just trying to find it here. But alluding to hearing, and I think he went on to say he was hearing it from the Brady Tkachuk camp, or that side of thing, his source. Simmer's tweet, my source tells me frustration has set in with the Tkachuk camp. Brady is trying to stay positive, but doesn't understand why it's taking so long. I asked what has been offered, and it was termed, they have not received a legitimate offer from the Sens. And that was what Simmer put out there this morning.
Well, it's interesting, and Simmer certainly has some good insight when he talks to people. Short-term, long-term contract. I still go back to, Matt, that only now one of those 5 guys from the 2018, the top guys. You look at Rasmus Dahlin, you look at Quinn Hughes, Brady Tkachuk. You can talk about Jesperi Kotkaniemi, but not really, right? Like, he was offer sheeted, but hasn't signed. He signed that deal, but it's not like he has signed a long-term or even bridge deal with somebody. Montreal. And Svechnikov's really the only guy that has, and he signed a long-term deal. Don't know how the Ottawa Senators or the Tkachuk camp want to handle it, but Brady, the thing I do agree with Simmer with, and I think a lot of people have expressed this, is the Tkachuk camp have put themselves in a really good spot. He is the poster boy for the Ottawa Senators, along with Thomas Chabot. But even more than Chabot, because of his personality, Brady Tkachuk's the poster boy for the Ottawa Senators. And he's put himself in a position to have some leverage, because this organization promised that they would lock up all of their top guys when the time was right. And the time is coming. But again, we're still 5 weeks away from the beginning of the NHL season. We're still a couple of weeks away from camp. And I look at Rasmus Dahlin and Quinn Hughes, and Jesperi Kotkaniemi's caught in this little bit of a web right now. But Svechnikov is the only one that's really signed. Of those guys that were drafted in 2018 that are RFAs that are in the same spot. I don't worry that Brady Tkachuk and his name will go on a contract. It's just how long that contract will be. And what does it mean to the Tkachuk camp? Because as you said, he knows what happened with Mark Stone. He sees what's happened and wants the organization to be in a great spot. I understand it from that point of view. I really do. But from the Senators' point of view, if you're trying to show Brady Tkachuk that you're serious, you've done a decent job here along the way at locking up Thomas Chabot, at locking up now Drake Batherson, and showing people that you're serious about winning. And maybe for Brady Tkachuk, that comes in a short-term deal because you're serious when the time is right to go out and win in signing that premier free agent or trading for that premier guy. I don't know what Brady Tkachuk necessarily wants, but I do know that his camp holds some leverage. And you hear that from Simmer's tweet and the people that he's talking to, is that they hold some leverage and they want to get it done. But it's like, Matt, they might want to get it done, but if they're coming in at $9.5 million per year, it's great. I'd like to get something done too, for people to sign me up at $9.5 million per year. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, right?
Yeah, and I mean, these are negotiations. That's what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Pierre Dorion had 2 big RFAs to sign, and now one of them is taken care of. And you would think a lot more focus can now be dedicated to the Brady Tkachuk deal.
Rick says, does Brady get 7 times 7? Homer, Hugh, and Hogs back. I can't believe that Ottawa would lowball him. I think it's more to do with term than money. Could that be what the Tkachuk camp is negotiating via the media? Don't know the answer to that. Homer, Hugh, and Hogs back. Because once you, like Drake Batherson, congratulations on the deal, but he's not in the same boat as Brady Tkachuk, right? I don't know what Brady Tkachuk wants. Does he want a short-term deal for the organization to prove to him and everybody else that they're serious about winning?
Does he want a short-term deal because we're in a flat cap world and might be worth signing long-term when there's a guarantee that the cap's going to rise and
Yep.
thus his salary would rise?
Exactly.
Like, there are a lot more implications here than maybe it appears on the surface, potentially.
And for the organization, can they afford, through the cap, to sign him to the money that he wants now, knowing it's going to be a flat cap for the next couple of years? And how that will actually hamper the organization from going out and getting other guys. Word is the cap is going to remain near where it's going to be, within $1 million or two for the next year or two, and then we'll see, right? And that could be what Brady Tkachuk and some of these other guys want. Yeah, I'll play a couple of years, but you do take a chance, obviously. If A, you don't play very well, B, you get hurt, you don't put up the numbers for a couple of years, suddenly your value goes down from what you could have got now. So it's decision from all parts here.
There's also, like, we've seen it over the past almost 2 years now. The once in a lifetime event that comes out of nowhere that could change everything. Because if you were a free agent and you signed before the pandemic, you're going to do a lot better than anyone who has signed since.
Yep.
Because the thought was, well, the cap has always kept rising and that'll keep going. And then we had this event that no one on earth anticipated, at least in the sports world, maybe Wimbledon, who had the pandemic insurance. But it's completely changed the global economy and the landscape of sports, the landscape of the economy, and it's completely changed things. And I mean, we've seen the salary cap become static for years at a time. And so there are so many factors at play here, and there are certainly some benefits to doing what Thomas Chabot and now Drake Batherson have done and guaranteeing yourself a paycheck for a long amount of time.
Your thoughts? 12-1200. Continue to text them in. Top of the hour will be Randy Ambrosie, Commissioner of the Canadian Football League. And if you have a question for him, send it in as well. You'll hear from Randy Ambrosie and Pierre Dorion in the next hour. She's got game at 5. Countdown to kickoff at 6, 7:30 the kickoff. Red Blacks and the Alouettes get you into the Labor Day long weekend here on TSN 1200.
Let's get back to the drive on the home of the Sens, TSN 1200.
Welcome back to the drive. Lever Stage here at TD Place. Matt Conasvita back at 87 George Street in the market.
We're sailing late.
Doing something. Are you enjoying Yacht Rock so far?
Me?
Yes.
Yeah.
It didn't sound resounding.
I mean, would I be listening to this if I was on a lengthy road trip? I don't know. Not for the entire road trip, but for a a Friday before a long weekend, a shortened show on a Red Blacks game day. I'm fired up. I'm loving the Yacht Rock.
If you guys are playing Yacht Rock, can I please request Fins by Jimmy Buffett?
I don't think Jimmy Buffett is Yacht Rock.
Well, can it be just for today?
Sure, I can get some Jimmy on.
Okay. See what I...
The thing about Yacht Rock, it's very arbitrary. And like I found a website called Yacht or Yacht. And you can punch in a song and they'll tell you if it's Yacht Rock or if it's Yacht Rock. And there's
what,
no
Matt?
Jimmy Buffett.
We're not going to have the leftover 5 on the drive today, but at some point, can we just type songs into Yacht or Yacht?
Yeah, of course we can. I've been doing it. And there's some songs that on the Yacht Ski ranking, on the Yacht or Yacht website, do not qualify, but I've been playing anyway.
All right.
But Jimmy Buffett only has one song that's even ranked on the Yacht or Yacht, and that's Margaritaville. It gets a score of 2.75 Yacht Ski out of 100. And you need to be 50 in order for this website to consider it Yacht Rock.
Yachtski.
Yachtski. I will tell you, there's only one song that gets a 100 on the Yachtski scale, and that is this song, What a Fool Believes by the Doobie Brothers.
MK, do you have Sailing Shoes by Little Feat? From Matt, in the moment, loving the Drake and the Yacht Rock. I guess it's all about how you're feeling in the moment, right? And if people are feeling good going into a long weekend, that's what we're here for. One more here before we go. The commissioner of the CFL, Randy Ambrosie, coming up. What NHL player cracks his toes before games? How is that something to make us want to listen to the podcast? Well, first of all, that's not our podcast, which is good. And we had this conversation on the break, Matt, and somebody else has picked up on it. I wouldn't know why it would surprise me if anybody cracked their toes before a game. Like, would you say a player, oh, that doesn't surprise me at all about that guy. Oh, but that guy, that really surprises me that he cracks his toes.
Yeah, I don't have, it was out there.
Yeah.
But it got attention, and I think maybe that's the point.
Exactly.
Because now you're thinking about the suspendables.
Randy Ambrosie is the commissioner of the Canadian Football League, and he'll join us next. You'll also hear from Pierre Dorion, Sens general manager, in the next hour on The Drive on TSN 1200.